I get so happy when people of all ages ask me to do their nails. This client is in her late 70s and she told me that she's been doing her own nails her whole life. Since being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, her joints in her hands have been in so much pain that she no longer can do her nails, so she decided to come to me. She told me stories of her past, how she fled to America during World War II, how she built a life from nothing but a few dollars in her pocket. When I finished, she told me that even with all the obstacles in her life, she feels fulfilled. I lived a beautiful life, she said, and I only wish the same for you.
I was a product of an affair between my mom and dad. My mom was already married and had a 1-year-old daughter. She wanted to abort me, but my dad begged her and paid her a hefty sum. She signed over all rights and I didn't see her for my 14 years of life. She recently contacted my dad saying she wanted to get to know me better, and he said it's entirely up to me. I was skeptical but decided to meet her. I've been talking to my mom's side for about 2 months when at a family gathering they all sat me down and said the reason they contacted me was because my half-sister was having kidney failure and was basically dying. At a loss for words, I got up and left. I told my dad and he said it's entirely up to me, but I should get tested just to see before I make my decision. So I did. When my mom found out, she thought this was me agreeing and told everyone the good news. I did a lot of thinking and I decided I would not be donating my kidney. This family had done nothing for me. The only reason they tried to get in contact was for my kidney. So I don't want anything to do with them.
Guess who's back? Since you guys liked my voice so much last time, I was bribed to do this one too. Haha, just kidding. Sorta. Today we have our dad with us, a little family reunion. I decided to be a good son and let my dad get the manicure today. I'll let him have the heart attack this time. You already know she pushed back those cuticles. Look at that crust. Here we go with the drill again. Apparently dad has sensitive skin too, genetics. So she used the safe drill thingy again. I was told to say only clean bit. Honestly, I stayed for the whole process just to see dad's reaction to the sharp scissors. Let me tell you, his eyes lit up and not in the good way. So yeah, she cut all that dead skin off and look how beautiful. Disclaimer, I was not forced or blackmailed to say any of this, and I totally came up with it by myself. Okay, bye!
Story time. I babysat a lot of kids in my neighborhood, and there was this one night that I was babysitting a 2-year-old. It was around 10 o'clock at night, so the kid was sleeping, and I was just sitting in the living room. In the living room, there was a big TV, a couch, and then behind me, it was a wall with a giant window. So it was really late at night, I had nothing to do, so I was Snapchatting my friends. If you Snapchat anybody, I'm sure you know that sometimes you Snapchat really fast. You don't even know or look at what you're sending. I was mass snapping all my friends, and then one of them replied 10 minutes later. And he said, "Who's that guy behind you?" And I turned around and no one was there, so I'm like, he's playing a joke on me. But then I get another Snapchat from this friend I had, and she lives all the way across the country. They don't know each other. And she said, "I think there's someone outside." So I was really freaked out because I was alone, there was a giant window behind me, apparently there was someone outside. I wasn't gonna call the child's parents because I didn't want to freak them out, but I was scared.
This is why I always lock my doors at night. There was once a boy who got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. While in the bathroom, he hears loud noise and wanted to go investigate. But then he started hearing what sounded like large objects being dragged across the hallway. Now feeling scared, he runs into the bedroom and hides under his sheets, hoping whoever it was would just ignore a sleeping child. The door creaks open, and a man with no eyes and no clothing is dragging his parents' bloodied bodies into the room. This man props up the boy's father against the edge of the bed so he would be facing the boy, and puts the mother in a chair also turned towards the boy. It was as if the intruder wanted the boy to see the parents' bodies, but the boy just pretended he was asleep, trying as hard as possible not to make a noise. Then this man started writing something on the walls, and when he was done, he went under the boy's bed and stayed there for hours, until the boy found the courage to turn his head and read the message on the wall. It said, "I know you're awake."
If you're ever driving late at night, don't do what they did. 2 boys picked up a girl on the side of the road while they were on their way to a school dance. In the car, she kept saying that she was cold, so one of the boys gave her his jacket. But when the night ended and they were about to drop her off, the girl accidentally left with the jacket. So the boys said that they would just come back the next day to get it. But when they came back and knocked on her door, they discovered something that would make them question what is real and what isn't. An old woman opened the door and asked them who they were looking for. After talking to her for a while, it was revealed that the girl they found on the side of the road was her daughter. But the thing is, she had been dead for 12 years. She was killed in a car accident at the same street corner they first saw her. The old woman pointed to a cemetery down the road and said, "That's where we buried her." The boys didn't believe her at first. They'd spent the whole night with this girl, so they knew that she had to be real. But they went to the cemetery and saw the boy's jacket draped over a gravestone. And on the gravestone was the girl's name and the date of her death, exactly 12 years ago to the day.
Okay, this is part 2 of my teacher almost getting fired. After that whole incident, my class was dead silent for the rest of the period. We then all went to lunch. None of us really talked about it, but then all of a sudden a woman came up to us. We were all kind of sitting around the same table. This woman, I guess she was administration. I have no idea who she was. I think what had happened was a bunch of students had reported him. She asked us all from Mr. W's class to follow her. I don't remember if this was the same day or the following day, but she asked us to follow her into an empty classroom. I think it was used for testing. She had us all sit around the table and recount the incident to the best of our ability. Summer was there. What she wanted to know was basically, did Mr. W throw that binder at Summer? And we all recounted it basically the same, but at the end of the day, we all said yes. But eventually, they let us all go. The following day, Mr. W was really sad. Barely spoke to us, barely did anything. He was passing out some work. He looked at Summer and said, "Summer, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw that binder at you." His voice sounded like he was about to break. But we did have him as our teacher for the rest of the year, so no, he wasn't actually fired. But I do think Summer was terrified to speak up for the rest of that year. And the rest of us kind of didn't want to be in that class anymore. Yeah.
Part 2 to my most recent toxic best friend story time. Little background information. I told him the reason why I didn't want to talk anymore was because I just didn't want a relationship. So we get to the party, and him and his friends were there, so she went over to them. And I went and talked to other people because I just didn't want it to be awkward. Well, an hour later, we all met up again, and I started having a conversation with him. Well, I guess my best friend didn't like that, so she started embarrassing me in front of everybody. So she starts talking about how my clothes don't fit me right and I look like a block, and how my boobs are so much smaller than hers, and how I don't have an ass. Literally in front of everybody, just embarrassing herself. And me. So after that, she went to the bathroom to throw up because she had way too much to drink. And him and I started talking. And he was like, "Why wouldn't you just tell me that you didn't like me?" And I was like, "What do you mean? I just didn't want a relationship." He goes, "Oh, well, she just told me that you like somebody else." So that was the last straw, and I just left her at the party. Story time about my psychotic best friend. So we're gonna call this girl Gia. So a little background information. This all happened whenever I was in 9th grade. I saw Gia sitting at this lunch table alone, and I invited her to come sit with my friends and I. And after talking to her, I found out that she was a new student and she didn't have any friends. So her and I started hanging out and we became really close. Like, she would come over my house 24/7. Well, my older sister was a grade above us, and she would act really weird around her. And by weird, I mean like she would always make fun of me in front of my sister, and weirdly enough, try to cause problems between us. My sister didn't really like her. She thought that she was weird, but because she was my friend, she was being super nice to her. Well, like a month later, she started trying to become best friends with my sister. Like, any conversation she would have, I would be like, "Oh, do you want to come over?" She would be like, "No, sorry, I'm hanging out with your sister today." And I would go home and I would be like, "Hey, are you hanging out with Gia today?" And my sister would be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like, for part 2.
Part 2 of I found out that my dad was sleeping with my grandma. So continuing on with the story, I walk in on my dad and my grandma butt naked sleeping with each other. And by sleeping, you guys know what I mean. Oh, did I forget to mention that that's also my dad's mom? So I caught my dad sleeping with his mom. Mind you, my grandma's like 55 and my dad is 32. I mean, I guess it's not that big of an age gap. So back to the story, my first reaction was to take out my phone and start filming it. And my dad and grandma did not like that. But I just kept filming. My exact words were, "I need receipts." By this time, they're both under the blanket trying to get dressed, without me seeing their wings and hoo-has and titty-tas. At this moment, I was like, wait, I could be having the dream life right now. I could blackmail these two into anything at this moment. Then I was like, nah, I love my mom a little more than that. So I started thinking for a second about what I wanted to do. Then I book it out the house and send the videos to my mom. They did get a divorce. My dad lives with my grandma, and I do occasionally see him, but I live with my mom.
So I'm standing there waiting for his food to be ready, and here comes my coworker and my GM and one of my managers, and all three of them look so mad. And my GM's like, "Steph, what happened?" And I'm still hella confused, so I just say, "I don't know." So we're all standing there. My GM is standing right next to me, and the guy's food is ready, so he comes up to the counter to get it, and my GM looks him straight in the face and says, "Do we have a problem?" And when this guy came into the store, he was really obnoxious, but when my GM said that, that automatically changed. So the guy says, "Oh, it's just Mess with People Tuesday," and my boss was just like, So then the guy looks at me, and he said, "How are you the only nice person in the store?" And obviously I didn't respond. Like, what was I going to say? "Oh, thank you so much." Like, no, dude, you need to leave. Nadie te quiere aquí. Yo no sé por qué. So we all waited until he left the store, and I look at my coworker, and I'm like, "What did he say?" And she was like, "When he walked up to the counter, he looked at you and said, 'I don't want you serving me because Donald Trump doesn't like you, and he's going to support you and everyone else.'" My mouth dropped. I was in shock. I did not hear what he said. Obviously, I would have said something back if he did, but at least my boss had my back.
Part 3 about the boy that lived across the street who used to stalk me. So like I said, I told his older brother that our cameras didn't work anymore, knowing that he would tell Mac. Because he had it in his head for some reason that Mac wasn't obsessed with me. And the reason why I told him our cameras didn't work was because Mac was watching while the cameras were being set up outside. And after that, everything stopped. Except he would still be outside every single morning on his fucking porch watching me. So the one night while I'm sleeping, I wake up to some noise right outside my window. And my bed was on the same wall as the window, so I could see who was right outside my window, but they couldn't see me. Well, I look, and guess who the fuck it is? It's Mac trying to get inside of my fucking window. So I quietly call my dad, and it's like 3 in the morning. So I tell my dad what's going on, so he goes outside and nobody's there. Well, the next day we check the cameras. There's footage of him jerking off outside my window, trying to break into my room with a fucking crowbar. Luckily, I was staying at a friend's that night, taking pictures of me outside my window. So we showed his parents. Then we moved and they sent him to a mental hospital.
Story time to when I found out my boyfriend just got out of prison and what he was locked up for. And he's my ex, by the way, now. So I was working at a fast food place. And I guess he was hired. I went to the back of the break room and we started talking, having a normal conversation. He was flirting. I didn't realize he was flirting, but he was flirting. And then eventually we became friends, and from friends we just started talking every day. And on top of that, we worked together. And honestly, I regret everything. Like, I regret it, but at the end of the day, it happened. So one day we hung out. He told me if I wanted to follow him somewhere, and I was confused because I wasn't sure where he was taking me. But when we showed up to the place in the middle of like West Bubblefuck, I was confused, and he's like, stay here. He told me to stay outside, and he's like, you can look me up. He gave me his full name, his full government name and everything, like for part 2.